Welcome back to Market on Close. We've been talking a lot of stocks. Let's go over to the commodity space. Check out the move in crude. It's been up throughout the day. Copper's been there with it. Scott Bauer is with us, CEO of Prosper Trading Academy. Scott, oil seems like it's got just about as much momentum as stocks, if not maybe a little bit more lately.
Yeah, it was down a little bit this morning and rallied into the close of the day here, up on the end of the day. I think that's all based on what we saw the news coming out of Cushing with a big drawdown in their stockpiles there. But, you go back to Friday, Oliver, and the Baker Hughes rig count, for those that follow that, we're down to like a dozen-year low or so. So you really have this push and pull of supply and demand. We know that supply is being, cut off from OPEC to here. And demand, we think, is picking up, right, due to reopening. But is that going to stay? Are we going to see a continued demand right now? And that is, that to me is the big question for crude.
So, Scott, what are we going to measure it by? Is it going to be some big beat on inventories that will say, okay, we're back. We'll be watching for airlines to give us some indication that they can add on more capacity. Do you think that right now that crude has moved too far based on these signals?
I do think it's moved too far. And I am not, just a full disclosure here, I don't have a position yet. But if I were, I'd be leaning on the bearish side here. If we get another, maybe 3-4% rally here, I am definitely going to short crude because I just personally think that it's kind of a buy the rumor, sell the news type of thing. And people are expecting the demand comeback that we've had. I think it's way too high at this point.
Yeah. All right. So if you do that, then how do you go about it? Do you go into a USO? Do you do the future? I mean, how do you look at potentially getting short on this? What about structure, Scott? Is there still a need to be hedged to the upside in case there's some surprise on the virus front?
I would always use options on futures like we've spoken with before here. I don't like using USO, but options on futures. And if you buy a put spread or if you sell a call spread or even do a combination of the two, an old Texas hedge that we have talked about before, we're still limited. I can always limit my risk. I can always predefine my risk. So I will never be open-ended in terms of, just selling a call. I don't want to have that complete exposure.
Yeah. All right. So crude at $40 now. What about the whole number thing? I mean, we're kind of like checking off different levels after different levels here. We're not back to 60s, but the next one's 50 here. At a certain point where you have to kind of chase the momentum. Is it? How does it compare on a technical basis with the strength?
I mean, I'm looking 42, 43 area to be short. If this thing ran up to 50 here, that would, to me, indicate that we are, I don't want to say beyond all virus concerns, but that, to me, would really signify that we've got this thing, a grasp on it, that, maybe there's a vaccine that is imminent. That, to me, is, 50, we would have to see something, I don't want to say outrageous in a bad way, but something that is just absolutely mind-blowing in terms of getting this economy back to everybody getting back to work.
Yeah. All right. So a big push in the virus story, probably needed for a big push in crude, waiting and looking for a potential short entry. Scott, before I let you go, I'm curious, as we continue to talk about these stay-at-home trades, the way this market has gone back into the kind of quarantine-type NASDAQ leadership. What are your traders, what are your clients and students, if you will, excited about trading right now? Is it the reopening stuff, the airlines still, or are they back into the pelotons?
No, they're really into the pelotons of the world and the Zooms of the world and the docs of the world, because I think what we're seeing is even with a reopening, and let's all hope that we get that reopening, sooner rather than later, even with the reopening, many of these stocks, Oliver, are not going away. You may see a little bit of a drop-off, but let's take a Peloton, for instance, okay? I was a member at a health club. My family was. I probably am never going back. Even when the reopening is there, I ordered a Peloton. That's obviously just one small example, but you look at some of these other platforms, a Zoom and a Doc, and just because we have a reopening, I think some of these companies have really just made the mark that they're here to stay. So a lot of my clients are telling me they love the upside in these things. even though they've seen just massive, massive runs.
All right, well, the momentum is back today. Peloton up 3%, sorry, 3.5%, even after pulling back from the highs. Zoom Video, 2.5%. Teladoc up 1.5%, so new highs across the board. Scott, thanks for the crude talk and crude oil talk, that is, of course. Always clean talk from Scott Bauer.